This episode of the Smart Aviator podcast is brought to you by Avenco Insurance Company. Real people, real answers. Call 800-822-9123 for a quote.
Welcome to another episode of the Smart Aviator podcast. And this week's guest is Eamon Powers. He's a director of training development at Cirrus Aircraft, who recently introduced a new instrument rating program. And we're going to talk about that. And I think training in Cirrus airplanes as a whole, I think, is a good discussion. Eamon, before we get into the actual instrument rating program as offered by Cirrus, or prescribed by Cirrus, I guess, if you were to stab at it, what percentage of Cirrus pilots, owners, don't have instrument ratings?
Oh, that's a good question, Larry. So we have, one thing we do at Cirrus that I think is unique is we have this program for all of our pre-owned Cirrus customers, right? And we call it Embark. And that's where we're getting the best data to know where our current, kind of the current population is at. And at the moment, very close to 50% of our Embark customers don't yet have an instrument rating. And that was certainly one of the major contributing factors for us to kind of endeavor on building an instrument rating that works within Cirrus approach.
It's training for any Cirrus model, right?
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't matter what generation aircraft it is. You provide how much training?
Yeah, so we provide at a minimum, a transition course for anyone that's kind of purchasing a Cirrus aircraft, that non-new Cirrus aircraft. If you're going through the purchase process with a brand new Cirrus aircraft, you're going to receive entitlement training, which includes the transition training and some other things. But with Embark, yeah, it's a really great program for anyone from the first Cirruses to the most recent ones to make sure that they feel really comfortable living the Cirrus life.
And I'm sort of interested as to what the approach might be to training primary students in a Cirrus, whether it's the SR-20 or SR-22. These are high-performance airplanes and very different than a trainer you'd find at your local FBO. What are you seeing in terms of primary students starting out in a Cirrus? Challenges, benefits? What do you see?
Yeah, so we have a tremendous number of private pilot students. We've had the private pilot program out for a few years, right? We've had thousands of people participate in the private program at this point. Hundreds of people get their certificate with using the totality of the course, and then kind of piece parts of it as they come in and as they go. And we found a lot of success in the entire platform on the SR side, whether it's SR-20 or SR-22T. The course has been kind of crafted to work within there. I think we do some stuff differently because of the nature of our aircraft. We have a technologically advanced aircraft, high performance, flies high, flies fast, things that are not generally associated with your typical 172 or Piper Warrior like I learned to fly in. And I think what we've done there is we've paced the course a bit differently. We've also utilized simulators quite a bit, right? Even our private pilot program, as it stands today, has about 28 hours of simulator time in it. And the idea there is, hey, we want to practice, say difficult tasks or challenging tasks in an environment that isn't loud, isn't in the airspace system. We want to make sure that the people that are going through our training feel really confident. That's a big word we use a lot. We want people to feel confident and comfortable when they're in their Cirrus, and the way that we've kind of structured the training in private pilot does that as well, right? So even where we've placed the solos and where we've kind of done the different stages between cross-country building, all of that is very deliberate and done with intention. So that we're not necessarily racing for the Part 61 minimums. That's kind of not our goal there. Our goal is to, when you're done with the private pilot course, you're going to feel very comfortable operating your aircraft, um, you know, to meet your mission goals. And that's normally, business travel or, visiting family or going to, see your kids that are in college. Those are some of the typical things our students and our pilots are doing. And we've built the private pilot to be even able to accommodate those like goal missions, if you will, so that we can teach them in the environment they're going to be in. So it is a different take, and we've taken that same approach, if you will, to use a pun there. We've taken that same approach to the instrument rating to really work with where the individual is at and get them to a place where they can succeed on the check ride at the first time. We have 27,000 participants within Cirrus Approach, like in terms of users, and we've got more than 35,000 completed courses over the last 3 years. That's we're happy with that number. We see that we've got a lot of adoption, whether it's with new aircraft owners or people out in the field. And so our hypothesis is that if we're providing good training experiences and opportunities for people to get better in their aircraft, people seem to be taking those opportunities. And we think the instrument rating is going to continue to do that. We also think that instrument rating is a good place for people to enter into the Cirrus kind of ecosystem, because, man, I'll tell you, flying an SR-22 in VFR is fantastic. Flying an SR-22 under instrument flight rules really unlocks basically anything you can imagine, right? It's a very capable aircraft that, being able to fly direct everywhere is kind of nice, right? And especially with the perspective touch avionics, like you're cooking. And it's a fun plane to fly, really great cross-country plane. And we think that the instrument rating is just a kind of the next step for many people to kind of unlock the totality of the Cirrus flying experience.
Yeah, let's talk about the training, the instrument rating training in general. Understanding that there are different generations of airplanes with different avionics, and I assume that this course is pretty intensive when it comes to operating the avionics.
Well, absolutely, yeah. So the course does capture. It captures basically everything from perspective to perspective plus to perspective touch, right? So it's really focused on those particular models of Cirrus aircraft.
Okay.
You're going to see a lot of perspective plus perspective touch, G7, G7 plus content, because that is obviously our current aircraft model that's out in the field. But anywhere where the perspective plus system and prior to, is going to be, we relevantly place those positions in there as well. So it's not just for the newest Cirrus, but it's certainly tailored for the most recent generations. With that being said, the avionics functionality there is, the avionics functionality I think applies even to earlier models of Cirrus. And the instrument procedures, right? Though the avionics might differ from, say, the earliest models of the Cirrus, I think the avionics, the procedures themselves are still completely relevant and very worthwhile for people to go through.
Yeah, that gets me to think about how we're teaching instrument students these days.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah.
Do we need to change our approach because of new avionics?
I would say probably to some degree, yeah, right. And I think you see that. I'll tell you one place that happened with us, right? Specifically when I'll give you a bit of behind the scenes, if you will, right? So we were testing the instrument rating course earlier this summer, right? We'd had the flight curriculum in a very solid place, and we had most of the kind of videos and interactive. Like we were in a place that we could bring it out to the field with some of our Cirrus training centers. And get some solid feedback before we opened it to the market at large, which is something we do typically here. So we had 40 people go through the instrument course before anyone else saw it, right? And we took that feedback. But one of the places that we got feedback from when they got into phase 2 of our program was, hey, where are the DME arcs? And we sat there and we were like, yeah, that's a good point, right? So we wound up making a DME arc video. We wound up talking through how to do a DME arc in the Cirrus, because now, yeah, with the technologically advanced aircraft, DME arc is basically just like anything else, right? There are ways to do one manually, and we do that. We show them we show our students how that can happen and how it occurs, because there's something to be said when you're training, like training itself is kind of an abstraction from, daily flying, right? We're in a kind of focused moment to teach you how the airplane works in the aerospace system, right? And so doing the DME ARC procedure in that particular case, and that's just one instance, makes a lot of sense to know how to, kind of operate your aircraft at a higher level, right? And so that, I think, is a good example of, do we need to think about the curriculum differently? Sure, I think that's really important. But does that mean we, get rid of OBSs and thinking about VORs? No, I don't think that's true either, right? We want to make really competent and confident aviators. We also want to meet people where they're at. So no, I don't think it's appropriate that hey, you're going to do all your flight planning in ForeFlight or Garmin Pilot, and then and then you just follow the pink line. I don't think we're going to teach that ever. But I think what we're finding is that kind of balance between those things to say, yes, practically, this is probably how you're going to fly very often, and let's fly that way. But let's also take those deep dives and really get people interested in why these things are happening. Our experience has always indicated to us that if we tell our students, give our students a bit of the why, and Tony Bottini's videos are fantastic for this. He gets you into that kind of depth that you're looking for. And, we've had really positive feedback throughout, our experience developing training materials and training courseware to kind of represent that, like people want the end goal, but they're interested in the journey along the way.
Yeah. Where do Cirrus pilots get into trouble in the instrument environment in say, a late model Cirrus? My sense is that if I look at areas in the airplane where there may be high risk if you're not up to speed, autopilot and programming the GPS. I got that right?
Well, so our pilots, what we have found, and especially when we were testing the instrument rating, we found that our pilots are very competent with the avionics, right? Like we found that that's actually pretty consistent across Cirrus owners.
Okay.
The thing that we identified, though, and not the way that we built the instrument rating, kind of in this particular case, was we recognized that you might be very competent at the avionics, but maybe not necessarily outside of where you're comfortable flying. A lot of people will be flying the same places all the time or doing very similar missions all the time. And that's the place where I think anyone can, whether you're a Cirrus pilot or another pilot, those are the places where you can get lulled into complacency.
Yeah.
And so what we did do specifically with the instrument rating is we in two ways, we kind of broke the course up in a way that kind of sees where the pilot is in the beginning. There's a bit of an evaluation about it, a bit of skills testing, if you will, in the beginning of the course, so we can kind of understand, hey, where is this person at in their journey into becoming an instrument rating pilot? The other part is in the use of, so we have 32 hours of simulator use in the instrument rating program, which is, again, is far more than, the FAA requirement. And what we do there is we purposely, in two things, we introduce all of we call them challenging skills we introduce all those skills in the simulator because we think that's the appropriate place to introduce those skills. But also we've provided a significant amount of guidance to take people out of their normal areas, right? So we specifically provide guidance to say, if you're not flying in a Bravo or if you're not flying out of a Charlie, let's go do a Star or let's go do a SID in a place that isn't your home place. Let's go to the Northeast Corridor if you're flying in Scottsdale. If you're flying in Florida, let's go out to San Francisco. Like, give you some depth of experience that's beyond just your local area. And I think that's another place where the simulator has been utilized really well in our program. And then I also think that's just, hey, we're showing people in their very capable airplane that's very capable of going cross country relatively easily, that they can go cross country and they can feel confident in those things. So I'd say that's the place where, we're continuously trying to find ways to get people to, obviously if you feel really comfortable in your airplane, comfort is good, but we want people to be attentive to their skill level, and we're going to, kind of continue to provide opportunities for people to improve their skill level while also feeling super confident in the airplane.
Yeah. So how does the course work? You purchase the curriculum. Is it $9.95 for the course, and then you take that off to a Cirrus training center?
Yeah, so the course is $9.50, right? And you go to either you're already connected with a Cirrus Training Center, or you can connect in the app with an available Cirrus Training Center, and we basically make that connection happen. It's interesting, in the first couple days of the course being available, like close to 40% of the people that were purchasing the course weren't connected with a CTC, right? So we think that's really encouraging as a place that people are considering getting their instrument rating where maybe they hadn't been, and maybe they're considering getting that instrument rating in a Cirrus. Like that, I think, is a really interesting entry point into the Cirrus experience, because you're going to get a lot of the benefits. You're going to get all the benefits out of the Cirrus aircraft. But yeah, and then once you have the course, we have the course broken up to kind of three modes, right? So the first is just the flight curriculum. It's 32 lessons that take you through three phases. Phases: basic attitude instrument flight. That's the first 8 lessons. The next 12 lessons are all the instrument procedures, and then the last, if I'm doing my math correctly, the last 11 lessons are your kind of abnormals and emergencies, your cross countries, your longer cross countries, and then your check ride prep. We have 4 lessons of check ride prep at the end, because although we're not testing, or although we're not training to the check ride, we recognize the check ride is a significant event. And again, we want people to feel very comfortable when they're sitting down for that. The other 2 parts of the instrument rating, which I think are kind of, which are unique and I think interesting, are we've created a whole knowledge test prep a path. So, a person can, get ready for the instrument rating knowledge test directly within Cirrus Approach. They don't have to go anywhere else anymore. And then the last one is the supplemental flights. So we recognize that, we're going to have a lot of different people coming into the instrument rating. So whether you're coming right from private pilot, or, you've been flying under VFR for a number of years, and, hey, now it's the time, right? And you've got several hundred hours, right? So we recognize that not everyone's going to fit into the same kind of cookie cutter approach. So we've created a number of supplemental lessons that are both dual and solo, that you and your flight instructor can kind of work through to make sure your skills are where they need to be for you to be successful in the aircraft. I think the thing that one thing that, I'm sure a lot of flight instructors listen to this program because you are who you are, Larry, right? So I think one thing I'd like to bring up is, one of the things that we built into this program that we were really, really intentional on is the guidance for the flight instructor, right? So we have provided a number of materials that on the CFI side put the flight instructor in a position that they feel really confident that, all the ACS tasks are being met, but also that, like I was kind of talking about with those simulator scenarios, we provided scenarioed guidance basically all the way across the board. So this course comes with a over 200-page instructor guide that will help the instructor even with facilitated questions and answers on ground school topics. And we think that's a differentiator. We want to make sure that all of our Cirrus instructor pilots are really prepared and feel confident in how we design the course, and are confident that they can carry it out as intended. So I'd say that's another differentiator. It's maybe not the flashiest thing that we always talk about, but as a flight instructor for a long time, I really appreciate when there's a clear goal and clear guidance as to how to meet that objective. So, yeah.
Yeah, nothing worse than the wrong training, especially when it comes to flying a Cirrus, I think.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, it's time to put you on the spot. We do it for every guest on the podcast. I'm going to ask you what your favorite used airplane is. And you could say, you could tell me what your favorite used Cirrus is, but
let's see.
You weren't always a Cirrus guy, I assume.
Yeah, so the my favorite. So I've had the pleasure of buying 2 airplanes in my life. Both of them were tail draggers, right? I bought and I think my favorite one was a Super Decathlon. I got about 1,200 hours in that plane, and I loved, I think, every minute of that time. So that I'll go with that. You know, I believe me, but I'm not gonna lie to you. I've got about 80 hours this year in the G7 or G7 Plus, and all of those have been very good.
You know, I asked the same question to Ivy MacGyver. I said, we were flying the new 7 Plus, and I said, is this the best one yet? And she said, yeah, I think it is, but do you think it's the best one yet? You know, I've been covering these airplanes since the beginning, the first SR-20, way back in the late 90s, flown every one of them, and yeah, I think the 7 Plus is the best SR-22 yet, but what do you think? What's the best generation?
Yeah, it's hard to not say the 7 Plus, right? Simply the safe return is a feature that I think is another one of those game changer moments where, you know, in terms of ensuring, you know, we talk about safety a lot, right? You know, like here at Cirrus and in aviation in general, I think safety is always one of those things. So anytime you have one of those kind of generational leaps in safety, hard to deny that. But I got to, you know, like I had flown before I came to Cirrus. I've been with Cirrus for about a year now, and before I got here, I'd flown the Perspective Plus, so the G6 a bit. But I got to tell you, the touch screens in the Perspective Touch flight deck are awesome, right? They're really great. They remind me of the Phenom that I used to fly, and yeah, I mean, it's to have that level of automation and that level of control in the package that's in the G7 and G7 Plus. It's hard to beat that, man.
Yeah. Well, thanks for coming on, Eamon. We appreciate it. And you've been watching the Smart Aviator podcast. This is episode number 6. We'll keep them going. Thanks for watching.